Now, what kind of cities are more conducive for creative practice? What kind of spaces and platforms enable creative talent to flourish? And how do we change our approach, given that the COVID crisis has structurally exposed all of the inequalities, all of the disconnections, all of the things that we knew were a problem, but it's made them bigger. But COVID has also accelerated some trends that were already underway in cities, such as the future of retail. How do we shop? How do we consume? How do we participate in our city's landscape? The future of work. Where do we work? Digitalisation does not require us always to go to the office. How do we engage? What are the nutrients that we need as creative practitioners, as producers in a changing city? We need a new approach to city making that looks critically at the asset base that we have and explores how, as we emerge from this COVID crisis, we can create new spaces for production, for consumption, for innovation, for exchange, for dialogue. And I think that we need to do this carefully, sensitively, and through engagement with our communities like never before. We need safe spaces, spaces for reflection, spaces for engagement. We need to think about who is involved and who isn't involved. And too often approaches to the creative industries or creative city making have been exclusive, have worked with those who shout the loudest, those who have the most capital, those with the strongest connections. We need to think about how we open up the idea of the city and the idea of creative work and cultural participation as a tool for all people, and talent as a resource that is open to everybody in a city. So a few things that I think are important in terms of future city making as we come out of this crisis, as I hope we come out of this crisis. One is we all need to reinvent what we mean by workspace. So many people have been working from home. Large office spaces which require us to go to work in the same space every day, all of the time, are, if not on the decline, they need to be reinvented towards more flexible, accessible approaches to workspace provision, which have a stronger relationship to home, where you can work from home and plug into a workspace for social as well as professional reasons. We need to think about how the home becomes an extension of the office rather than the other way round. And we need to make sure our workspaces are therefore more homely, that they are set in a sense safer, they're more hospitable, they're more nourishing environments to go to, and they complement our domestic environment, our family life, our social sphere, rather than be a barrier to that. And that reappraisal of the relationship between work and lifestyle, between play and production, I think is become even more important in the future. A second thing we need to think about is the utility of our existing infrastructure in cities. What is a shop? What is a workspace? What is a public space? Can we be more imaginative in the way that we phase out uses that are in decline rather than try to bring them back when they are in a sense already in terminal condition? Certain kinds of retail. Every city has large scale empty blocks now, both of office space and of retail space. We need to think about how we can repopulate them through leisure as well as work, the way that we can have flexible meanwhile activities with art galleries, performance spaces, providing the means for different communities to take over the space, to take over the city, to develop their own agency in the fabric of urban life. So looking at meanwhile or temporary or pop-up activities, I think will be really key. And the role of municipalities, landlords and developers in giving the keys to the city for creative talent will be really vital going forward. We need to think about outdoor space more, partly because of nervousness about public health, but also because the public realm is always such a neglected feature of the urban experience of a city. There are some cities which are real pioneers and others that are still way behind the curve. So we need to think of our city itself as a public space. Think about how you green it or regreen it, rewild it, how you connect parks to the concrete landscape, how you provide the infrastructure for performance, for events in public squares, in plazas, in different parts of the city, how you focus on the hard to reach or hard to manage parts of the city, those awkward spots, those spaces between main thoroughfares. How can they be breeding grounds for new types of creative expression, whether it be pop-up activities, small festivals, events, hubs, the use of public art, the interaction that is possible now through digital, through lighting, through immersive technology. We need to think about our cultural institutions as public spaces. They are hubs, they are brokers, they are connectors, they are platforms. They can help us to re-democratize the city by engaging with creative talent, providing the spaces, the resources, and trusting creative talent to develop new types of content, new types of experience. How can our museums, our galleries, our theatres be public spaces that encourage new creative work, sandboxes for the next generation of creative expression? All of that hunger that has been pent up at home is now ready to go to the culture houses for its fulfilment. And how can we hold the conversation? There's a real trend in many cities now towards having these kinds of third spaces or in-between spaces. In the UK, they call them urban rooms. In other cities, they have this notion of the social contact or the social engagement space with different communities. Sometimes it's a library, sometimes it's a cultural, existing cultural organisation. Sometimes it's a pop-up space in an old bank or in an old retail space. And this is where you engage with the city, because you can provide project space, contact time, you can ask questions, you can stage events, you can have talks, you can have maquettes and models of the future city, you can have interactive displays. And the idea of having dialogue in safe spaces with different citizens as they start to re-emerge in the centre of our cities is going to be really important. And again, it goes back to my point about the extension of the home, the notion of the city as an extension of the home, the safety, the inclusion, and the comfort that entails. And then we need to think big, think transformational. Where in your city can you co-locate the originators, the people who are embracing new technologies, that are increasingly open to diverse cultural influences? Where do the dreams land, and how can they be explored and manifested to create new trajectories of urban life? So this is the spaces for experimentation, the labs, the production spaces, the use of black box, simple theatre spaces for immersive technology experiences. The collision of technology and cultural expression going forward is going to be so important for new types of creative activity in our city. So put all these things together, think of your city as a fabric of cultural opportunities, open it up for more people to participate, and say that everything is on the table. Design in the messiness, the risk, because that is where the magic will happen, where the ideas will come from, and where your future city will be sourced. Thank you.